Well, here we go again. Another black person executed publicly on camera, and the politicians, the justice system, the media, and every white run establishment is shuffling their feet and working to try and protect the white murderer as much as possible. I'm really not sure what else it will take to wake black people up at this point. All right, let's look into this a little bit further. You have a homeless black man with mental issues making a ruckus on the train in New York. Not anything new or irregular. In my decades living in New York, I've seen this happen several times a month. But this time, a trained white Marine snuck up behind the man and executed him. He, along with a few other men, restrained Jordan, made sure he couldn't fight back, and then choked him to death. None of the people were police officers, and none of their lives were in danger. This sounds like an open and shut case. Arrest the murderers and charge them. But for some reason, that didn't happen this time. This time, they're not sure what to do exactly. Normally, if you murder someone and your life wasn't in danger, that's an open and shut case. The burden is put on the murderer to explain why they needed to murder the person, how their actions led to the murder. But now, all of a sudden, everyone has already determined that the white man isn't a murderer. No, he's a vigilante. He's a superhero. He's Batman. Now, in this case, the murderer's life wasn't in danger. Jordan Neely didn't have an explosive on him, didn't have a weapon of any kind on him, and from what I understand, the murderer wasn't even in Jordan's line of sight. So his life wasn't in any kind of danger. Jordan didn't even know he was there. He was behind Jordan and was able to easily get him into a chokehold. Then, while Jordan was being restrained, this murderer choked him to death. According to the news, this murderer is a trained Marine, so he's been thoroughly trained in this kind of move, which means that he knowingly choked Jordan to death. We know he didn't make a mistake because, again, he's been trained thoroughly as a Marine. He knows how long to hold the move and when to let go. But he didn't. He waited until he knew that his victim was dead. Despite all of this, the media is working overtime to protect the murderer by not releasing any information on him. They've gone into great detail about Jordan Neely's life, his mother's death, his background, and any charges that he may have. But the white murderer's name, his history, and everything else is being hidden. Then you have the justice system. They seem to be confused on how they should be handling this. They're investigating. Even though they know who the murderer is, they have testimony from the other writers, they have testimony from the person who recorded the video, and they even have video proof. Slam dunk case. Yet they're dragging their feet. You have an innocent man jumped and executed publicly, and none of the assailants are in prison. The man that restrained Jordan's hands and purposely worked to make sure that Jordan couldn't fight back and defend his life, I don't even think they charged him with anything. It's crazy, right? Well, it is crazy. And I've warned people about this. I made 2 other videos where I warned of a possible purge that was going to start soon in this country, a purge of the black community, where the wealthy use their media and their justice system and their politicians and their government to relay to everyone that it's okay to attack and kill black people. We won't really punish you. And as I said in the other videos, I believe this is going to happen because economically the country's about to implode. That's going to lead to a lot of anger, rage, and frustration from everyone. Now, the wealthy, they don't want the masses taking out that anger and frustration on them because they're the cause of all this. So the wealthy are going to give the masses another group to target, a distraction. And us black people, we're going to be that distraction. The wealthy are going to let the frustrated masses blow off some steam on us. And you're starting to see it happen now. Black people, because you refuse to do anything to stop the people who are targeting you, this will continue and will ramp up. White society has been testing us all this time. They've been letting cops, and even civilians like Zimmerman, harass and murder us and our children. Then they sit back and watched to see if we would do anything. And we did absolutely nothing. So now they know that they have nothing to fear. Will black people sit back and do nothing? Probably. So expect this to get a whole lot worse. Now, before I conclude, I want to use this as an opportunity to try and talk about my solution once again. We as black people need solutions, not just commentary. So I've been working trying to push this message, but wealthy whites do everything they can to suppress it by shadow banning me, canceling my videos, blocking me. And the black people who I'm making these videos for and coming and trying to give this solution to, they either ignore me or they don't do anything to help spread the solution. They don't even want to talk about it. But I'm going to keep trying. So here goes. So, we have a man who's been lynched publicly in one of the biggest cities on the planet. In response, the city says, and I quote, "Each situation is different. We have so many cases where passengers assist other riders. We don't know exactly what happened here until the investigation is through. We cannot just blanketly say what a passenger should or should not do in a situation like this." And when I say the city said that, I meant the fucking mayor. Then the city let the murderer go free, and they ignored all the other assailants who assisted in the murder. Well, this is preposterous, and it seems like it's racist. If a few black men restrained a young, unarmed 24-year-old white man with mental issues and then executed him, do you think the outcome would be the same? Of course not. And this is why they tell us to vote. If you're black, you need to take part in the election process. You need to vote in Democratic candidates of color so that they can be your voice. Wait. The public servants that are in charge of this are all black. And they're Democrats. Shucks. Well, let's take a look. So you have Police Commissioner Keechant Sewell. She's black. She's the head of the police in this city. Why hasn't she arrested the murderer and his accomplices? Doesn't seem like she cares about black people. Well, that's crazy. You have the district attorney, Alvin Bragg. He's black. He's also a Democrat. Why hasn't he immediately charged the murderer and his accomplices? Why hasn't he demanded that the police arrest this man who brazenly committed murder on film? We voted a black liberal Democrat into office because we were told that voting and taking part in the electoral process is what we needed to do to make sure we had representation and a voice. But this hasn't helped us at all. I'm confused. Well, who's in charge of those other two people that I just mentioned? Let's just keep going up the ladder. Mayor Eric Adams. Right? He's black. He's also another Democrat. But we already went over how he feels about this case. According to him, this white murderer was just assisting other riders by executing a mentally ill man who wasn't posing a threat to anyone.
What do passengers do in situations like that? Is it appropriate to take matters into your own hands?
Each situation is different, and how a passenger, we have so many cases where passengers assist of the riders, and we don't know exactly what happened here until the investigation is thorough. And each situation is different. I was a former transit police officer, and I responded to many jobs where you had a passenger assist someone. And so we cannot just blatantly say what a passenger should or should not do in a situation like that. We should allow the investigation to take its course.
According to Eric Adams, when a white man murders a black person, well, we can't just say what the white passenger should or shouldn't have done in that situation where they feel like killing. Wow. Now, remember, the white murderer was a trained Marine. He knows how much pressure to apply and how long to hold the person before they run out of air. Jordan had no weapon on him, and he was acting erratically. But he wasn't threatening anyone. And this happens all the time in subways. Now, according to the man who filmed the incident, Jordan had no interaction with the murderer before the assault began. The white man just jumped up and grabbed Jordan and started to murder him. Despite all of that, black Democratic Mayor Eric Adams says, "Huh, we shouldn't jump to any conclusions." And he suggests that the murderer executed Jordan because he was just assisting the other passengers. Assisting the other passengers by murdering a crazy black person. So when a white person murders a black person, well, he's just assisting his fellow citizens. If a black person murders anyone, well, he's a thug and a criminal. Has to be punished immediately. No questions asked. It's funny. This sounds like something a governor in Mississippi who had ties to the KKK would say in some kind of movie about racism in the South in 1957. But no, this is present day, and it's a liberal black politician in a liberal city saying all this. So I guess black people voting for change, for representation, and for a voice is just a big fat waste of time, huh? We've spent decades marching for change, protesting for change, begging for change, and voting for change. None of it works, and none of it will ever work. The white people in charge don't see you marching because they don't live near you. The people you're protesting to don't see the protest because they don't live anywhere near you. And voting, well, that was always a waste of time. Because voting is a system that was put in place a long time ago to make the masses think that they have a choice. But you don't have a choice. Because all of the candidates that you have to pick from were selected and hired by the wealthy. Give it some serious thought. If you wanted to run for public office right now, you just up and decided, you know what, I want to become whatever in my city. How would you do it? Where would you get the money to run? How would you pay for the extremely expensive television commercials? How would you get CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, or any other television network to bring you onto their platform? Who would you contact to make that happen? How much would you have to pay for that? How would you get on the radio? How would you pay for the billboards and the newspaper ads? How would you get the newspaper to interview you? How would you do all of that stuff? How would you pay for all of that? Do you even know where to start? Of course not. No average citizen is going to know how to do all of that. Someone with the money, the connections, and the know-how would have to set all of that up for you. And what do you think they would want in return? Think about it. Our politicians and the candidates that you see running are all employees of the wealthy. That's why you've never seen a black politician who will actually fight for the black community, because their wealthy white bosses instruct them not to. So when something like this Jordan Neely incident happens, the black officials don't know how to proceed because they know they're not allowed to attack white citizens, and they haven't received their instructions from their real bosses. Now let's take a quick look at Eric Adams' real bosses. So the mayor of New York City is entitled to a salary of around $250,000. That's $250,000 a year. And it says he's entitled to that. That doesn't mean that's what he's making. He could be making less. But let's say he's making $250,000 a year, right? Remember that. Now let's switch over to how much money he raised to run for office. According to the New York Times, Eric Adams raised almost $8 million. And he had a whole lot of wealthy donors. $8 million. That's a lot of money. Why do you think the wealthy gave him that money? Do you think they just donated it to him out of the goodness of their hearts? Doubt it. Do you think Eric Adams will ever be able to pay them back? Not likely. If he's making $250,000 a year, that would take him a long time to pay all of that back. He lives in New York, so he's probably spending at least $100,000 just to live in the city. That leaves him with about $150,000, and that's me being generous. If he used all of that $150,000 that he has left every year just to pay back his wealthy donors, that would take him more than 50 years to pay back, more than half a century. And Adams is 62 years old right now. So he would die before being able to pay that back on his regular salary. So that means he'd never be able to pay that back to them. So he's not going to be paying that money back. And we know that wealthy people just don't give money away for nothing. Hell, they don't even like paying taxes. So why would they just give Adams all of that money? Think about it. Let's say you're wealthy. You have over $100 million in your account. Would you be sitting around thinking about local politicians in different states that you can just give your money to? Of course not. You'd be out there living life with your money. So why are these wealthy people always so interested in just giving free money to political candidates? What are they getting out of it? Well, they're obviously getting something in return. And what they get in return are favors. They invest in these candidates and these politicians, and in return, they expect the politician to do things for them, like making policies so that they don't have to pay taxes, or altering existing regulations so that a product that normally wouldn't be legal can actually still be sold, or by looking the other way when a crime is committed by them, or like creating and upholding policies, laws, and statutes that target black people. Whatever the wealthy person wants, they get. And that's why they invest their money into people like Eric Adams. That's why you will never get the things that you ask for. The politicians always come up with reasons why they can never do the things that you want, because their real bosses, the people that are paying them that large sum of money, are instructing them not to give you what you're asking for. So let's say you're a black person and you want laws and policies enacted that will deter white citizens or cops from targeting you just because you're black. Reasonable, right? You want your politician to help protect you from malicious attacks. Well, the politicians, for some reason, have never been able to do that. Why do you think that is? It's because the wealthy white men and women that they work for are telling them that they can't do it. What other reason could there be? So if this reality bothers you, how do you fight back? What can black people do to stop this? Well, if wealthy people are using their money to control your politicians, which means they control your government, what would you have to do? What can you do that's legal and safe? Very simple. You take away the money that the wealthy people are using to purchase your politicians. And how do you do that? Well, you'd have to stop shopping. When you go shopping, you're pumping money into the accounts of the wealthy whites. Those wealthy whites then take your money and use it to hire, fund, and control people like Eric Adams. Let's take another closer look at this. Have any of you ever gone to a makeup store and purchased makeup? How many of you watch sports on these sports networks that are out there? How many of you like going to the movies? How many of you like buying watches and jewelry? How many of you like to smoke cigarettes? Well, if you like partaking in any of the things that I just mentioned, then that means you're part of the problem. Let's take a look at a handful of the wealthy that invested in Eric Adams. You have the chief executive of Mediacom. Mediacom is this media company that makes their money from networks that air NFL football games and baseball games. So if you like watching sports, your views help boost the ratings, and that generates advertising dollars for Mediacom. They then take that money that you help them make and they invest in Eric Adams. Let's look at another one. You have William Lauder. He's the heir to the Estee Lauder fortune. Estee Lauder is makeup. So if you like going into MAC Cosmetics, or you like buying Clinique makeup, or any of these other makeup brands, you're giving your hard-earned money to Mr. William Lauder. This wealthy white man then takes your money and invests in people like Eric Adams. Let's take a look at another one. You have Lori Tish. I don't know how to say this bitch's last name. You have Lori Tish. She's the heiress to the Lowe's Corporation. Lowe's Corporation, they own or they've gained money from things like Lowe's movie theaters, from the sale of Bulova watches, advertising revenue from networks like CBS, and from the sale of cigarettes. So if you like going to the movies, or you like buying jewelry, or you like watching Judge Judy, or you like smoking cigarettes, then that means you're taking your money and giving it over to Lori Tish. She then takes your money and invests it in Eric Adams. Lori's brother Steve, he's the chairman of the New York Giants. So if you like going to Giants games, or buying Giants jerseys or hats or any Giants paraphernalia, then you're taking your money and you're giving it over to Mr. Tish. He then takes your money and invests in Eric Adams. And let's not forget about the hedge funds. Hedge funds is very important. Let me break these down real quick. This is going to be confusing, but I'm going to try. I'm not that smart. Hedge funds are groups that take money from various individuals. So let's say my name is Johnny Quest. I'm a multimillionaire. I want to move some money around, but don't want people knowing what I'm using my money for. So I'll take my money and I'll invest in a hedge fund, like Blue Ridge Capital. They're a hedge fund that invested in Eric Adams. So I invest my money into Blue Ridge Capital. Then a whole bunch of my rich friends also invest their money into Blue Ridge Capital. We, as a group, then instruct Blue Ridge Capital to take some of our money and invest it into people or things that we don't want the public to know about. And the public will never be able to find out. Because if the public looks into it, they'll just see that a hedge fund called Blue Ridge Capital invested into this person, place, or thing. And the public will never be able to find out where Blue Ridge Capital got that money from because it's illegal for them to divulge that information. So when you see that a hedge fund invested into something, you'll never really know the actual individuals that are doing the investing, which ultimately means that when you shop, you never know who or what you're financing. So if you're out there blindly shopping and supporting these big white-owned businesses, you're funding and enabling people like Eric Adams or Joe Biden or Mitch McConnell or Nancy Pelosi or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So you have to stop spending money with these people because these people take that money and they invest it into these politicians who then go out there and ignore crimes that are happening to people that look like you and protect people who are committing the crimes against you. Now, black people, if you're tired of all these things happening all of the time, then you need to stop shopping. Alter how you spend your money. Instead of going to big chain stores like Macy's, Burger King, Walmart, Stop and Shop, Home Depot, McDonald's, or any of the other big chain stores, go to small mom and pop stores. Buy your products from small companies online. Go to corner stores and avoid the name brand products. Because when you spend your money blindly with these big conglomerate companies, you never know who or what you're financing. You spend your money with these big companies, you don't know who owns these companies or who has a hand in these companies. And then they take the money that we collectively give them, which adds up to a bigger sum, and they use that money against us. So you have to stop financing this stuff. Stop financing your own genocide. Help me spread this message. Talk to other people about it. All of these big white-owned social media sites keep shadow banning me and working to keep me from getting this message out there, so I need help. If you keep ignoring people like me and keep going about business as usual, then nothing's going to change. Why would it? The wealthy men and women who control your president, your governors, your mayors, your district attorneys, your police commissioners, and everyone else, they're enjoying life. Everything's going according to plan for them, so why would they make any changes? They don't care if you cry or beg or march or plead or protest. They don't care because it doesn't affect them. They own your police commissioners, remember? So they'll just have the police make sure that you leave them alone. And they don't like the fact that you exist, so they actually revel in the stories about black people being targeted or murdered. So stop wasting your time begging. You have to make them change. As long as you keep working for them and spending your money with them, they don't care about anything else that you want or anything that you do. So stop wasting your time. You'll only get their attention if you punish them for ignoring you. And you punish them by taking away their money and disrupting their cash flow. So stop shopping. If you've gotten this far in the video, then thank you for listening. I don't ask people to share my videos or to like them or to subscribe or anything like that. All I ask is that if you've listened and this makes sense to you, that you help share the message, the concept, and the idea that if you stop shopping, only then will you get some real change. Stop shopping.